Welcome back to the Crimson Chat, your go-to show for inspiring stories and fascinating conversations from the heart of the University of Kansas. I'm your host, Jaden Hill, and today we're stepping behind the lens to explore the stories, moments, and people that make KU such a vibrant place to be. Our guest today is Meg Kumin, a staff photographer for KU's marketing office. Meg's path to photography wasn't a straight line. She earned a bachelor's degree in American Studies and a master's in computer science at KU before working as a software developer at the National History Museum. After raising 3 children and navigating significant family life, she rediscovered her passion for photography and returned to KU in 2015 as a university photographer. Today, Meg captures everything from everyday campus life on Jayhawk Boulevard to research labs and once-in-a-lifetime experiences, like helping excavate the head of a Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton on a museum trip to Montana. Welcome to the Crimson Chat.
Thank you, Jaden.
This has been a long-awaited episode. We've had multiple people ask for you to be on the Crimson Chat, so I'm very excited to finally sit down and talk to you.
That's fun. I'm excited to talk to you.
So before we dive into your work as a photographer, I'd love to start to get to know you just a little bit better. And so how would you describe yourself as not just a photographer, but as a storyteller, as a multimedia worker?
That's a tough one. I do consider myself a photographer, and I don't know that I consider myself a storyteller or multimedia. I feel more like an ambassador, I think, just working across campus, working with students, working with faculty. There's a lot of cross-pollination that happens, and I get to kind of witness that on the side. I think that's my favorite aspect of being a photographer on campus.
One of the most interesting parts, I think, about your bio is just how you changed from American Studies to computer science to photography, but you were just talking about that cross-pollination. How do you see your, degrees playing into each other and now your work as a photographer?
They never made sense up until recently. I was told that I should be an engineer growing up. I had all the aptitude, math and spatial reasoning and all that sort of stuff, and I remember looking at college and looking at the curriculum for engineering, and all I saw was I got 2 choices, and that was it. I think you can relate, right? You only get 2 choices. I was like, that's not what I want. And so my parents are both academics, and they said, go find yourself. And so I kind of stumbled my way into American Studies. I was really just interested in people and identities and race and culture and how all that fit together. So I got my American Studies degree and was looking to go into my 4th year and realized that I had to graduate with an American Studies degree, and realized that grad school was probably the best step forward, but I didn't feel ready for that, and decided to try engineering. So I actually jumped into civil engineering in my 4th and 5th year and took a programming class that I really loved, and that's how I ended up getting a master's in computer science. And it was during the .com explosion from 1999 to 2002, and it was just a really satisfying degree. I love the problem solving, and then obviously I think I went and worked at the Natural History Museum, which was great.
Yes, and your love for photography, I mentioned this when I introduced you at the beginning of the episode, but started when you were a teenager. So we kind of know how you got through all of your degrees to get where you are now, but how did that love for photography start, and where did it get picked back up?
My grandfather was an amateur photographer. My father was an amateur photographer, so it was in the family. We have tons of photos, and when I was 15, my dad gave me his little camera, and I enrolled in a photography class and quickly ended up in the newspaper and the yearbook, had a dark room in my basement, and photography was everything in high school. And I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer. That was kind of my dream, but also didn't. I remember looking at the National Geographic magazine, and I saw 8 photographers, and I was like, well, that's a big world, and I'm not one of them. And so that's one of the reasons why I never pursued photography going into college. I just didn't think it was a viable career option. But I have found out otherwise. So
And I was going to say, what also is interesting is you're now working on a PhD in education. How does this play into this story?
Right. In 2018, I began teaching. There's a UNIV 101 program. It's a freshman seminar for students their first semester on campus to learn about university resources, how to be a good student, all those sorts of things. And I did that for about 5 years and loved it. Just absolutely loved it. I love mentoring students. I love connecting with students. And that has evolved into 2 different classes. I now teach a first-year seminar in liberal arts and sciences and then an honors seminar. And it's through that teaching that I decided to go into education. I want to retire as a photographer and become faculty at some point.
And I want to talk about your work as a photographer, because I think a lot of people maybe as kids had looked at National Geographic. I even remember at one point being like, that would be so cool, right? What does photography look like as a profession?
It's the best job in the world. It is absolutely the best job in the world, especially working on a campus, just because there's so much going on campus. There's so many different people. There's so many opportunities. There's study abroad. There's research. There's visiting dignitaries. It is just, I get to learn every day. I think it has allowed me to be a student in my job, which is a lot of fun.
And you've also talked about how both writing and photography have helped you work through personal experiences and different things that you've experienced during your life. Can you talk to me about that process as well? So you have photography as this professional side, but also maybe as a personal thing.
Yes. I went through a very difficult time before I became a photographer. My mother had breast cancer and was slowly dying of that, and my father was having his own issues with mental health and eventually dementia. And so I threw myself into caring for them for quite some time, and it was all stress. I had young children, and it was in trying to make space for myself. I remember I just wanted to just go take pictures. I just want to go and I had kids and noise. And I remember the first time I hired a babysitter so I could go take pictures. And that was the most liberating experience. I remember I drove on K10. I took a picture of a dandelion about ready to fly away. It was just like one of those moments. And that was the moment where I think I decided that this is what I wanted to do. And it was really empowering because it was one of the first times I did something for myself, and I can just get lost behind the lens. I think you can relate, right?
Absolutely. Well, I was going to say, so how do you balance now working as a professional photographer, so doing it for a job, for money? Mm-hmm. Do you still get that personal fulfillment, or do you do those kind of separately, or how does that work? Is to still, kind of honor that love for photography and just being free in that moment, but also having to, create content that is then for your job?
I don't shoot for myself anymore unless I'm on vacation. So that has been put aside. I think I'm gestating a little bit, trying to figure out who I am as a personal photographer. But yeah.
And a lot of people, and this is partly because I'm in the J school, but are looking at freelancing. That is kind of what a lot of people in this school are kind of pushed at them. It's like, okay, you have to freelance, and then maybe from your freelance work you might get a job. Do you have any advice for someone looking at freelance, or even any way to develop a personal photography style?
Just keep shooting, get out there and shoot as much as you can, shoot in different environments, find your passion and maybe find your little area, because people who are looking for photographers are looking for a certain look. So I think when you're first starting out, figuring your niche is a really good way to go.
Absolutely. And being a campus photographer, you've had access to a lot of moments and people and different things. Was there any moment that really stood out to you as a photographer, or anything that really surprised you about KU?
That's a tough one. No, not really. I mean, I just love people. I think people are surprising. So I never go in really expecting much of anything. I'm just there to document it and witness it.
Are there certain places on campus that you really love to photograph?
Yes. Potter Lake. I could sit along Potter Lake for hours. And then right down there by the library, those tulips. I have spent, I don't know, maybe 11 years, 88 hours lying on my belly in front of the tulips, shooting Fraser, and just, obsessing over the beauty of our campus.
I had the opportunity to interview Joe Fern, who is the head of KU Grounds, and we were talking about, I think he said 80,000 tulip bulbs they plant on campus each year, which is just a crazy number to even, but it is, the tulips are a huge part of this campus, and it is, I think, a very special thing when you walk down Jayhawk Boulevard and you can see Watson and the tulips and everything.
Well, it's interesting when I'm there shooting for hours on, you'll watch students walk by, they're all on their phone, but you'll just see people just stop and just like stare at them or take a picture, and you don't see people just stop and be present, so it's a nice place to be.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I also mentioned that I think is really creditable to your professional life was when you were at the excavation of the Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton along with other pieces that were being excavated at the time. Can you talk about that experience a little bit?
Yeah, actually, that was my opportunity to become a National Geographic photographer, and it didn't happen quite as easily as one would think. I remember I heard that they were going out to Montana to dig up a dinosaur, and I wanted to go. I wanted to make it happen. So I talked to my boss at the time. I was like, we should go cover this. He's like, no, there's no money. We can't do it. And I was like, no, we need to go do this. And then I kept wanting to do it. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I got plenty of vacation time. I'm just going to take a vacation and go out there and take pictures for them anyway. And so I made my plans. I was like trying to figure out, I was trying to recruit my videographer to go with me and started like forming the plan. And then all of a sudden my boss was like, wait, I want to go. And then suddenly we had funding, and 3 of us went out there to Montana, followed David Burnham, and spent about 5 or 6 days. And you're sitting on a mountaintop just digging, and at some point they gave me a pickaxe, and I got to pickaxe into the stone and actually found a small piece of T-Rex myself, and pulled it out of the stone. Well, I didn't pull it out of the stone. I pulled the stone out of the stone. Yeah. So I have excavated a T-Rex myself.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, the places that I'm sure I've even been with my work, the places that multimedia journalism has even taken me, whether that be videography, photography, writing a story, has blown my mind. But I'm sure you probably experienced that as well. Do you have a favorite place that you've went to through photography?
I went to Tanzania twice, and that was pretty extraordinary. We went to Zanzibar. The first time it was following a bunch of researchers around just a university setting, and the second time we went, it was much more interactive and in the spaces. And then we spent some time in Zanzibar, and that was really extraordinary.
Can only imagine. There's so many places that I have yet to go, but that is one that I would really like to. I've had a couple people actually on the show who have mentioned going to there, which is kind of interesting.
Yes. I bet I know them because it's a small group of people who went.
That's funny. But also, I want to switch gears a little bit. Your photography is a huge part of who you are, but you're also a mentor, and I think that is something that really grounds you to your work and to the university. You mentioned you teach 2 classes, but I'm curious, what is your teaching pedagogy? How do you approach teaching?
Very differently from a lot of people. I am pretty unconventional. My classes are centered around creativity and mindset, so we do lots of interactive, we make lots of artifacts. They make a failure resume where they have to list out all of their most notable failures. We make a zine where they're able to do a research project in zine format. We do improv. Lately, I've been, this last semester, I made all my students learn how to juggle. It was part of learning how to deal with failure and growth and learning from mistakes. So it's a very different class, and students usually come in their freshman year thinking they're coming to college, and they're going to have to sit proper in their desk, and someone's going to stand at the front and preach to them. And I get a few looks the first day of class and the third day of class, and about the 4th or 5th day, they're like, okay, we're in for the ride. So it's a lot of fun.
And why do you take that approach? Was there something that really shaped that, or is it just something that you feel is grounded in personal experience?
Personal experience, and then being a photographer, I've been in so many classrooms. I get to observe, all of the teaching award winners, all the research award winners, and I get to go in these classrooms, and I've watched professors teach. I've watched what works. I've watched what lights people up. I've watched what just makes the energy in the room turn into an electric place. And I've pulled a lot of the stuff that I've done, I've kind of pulled from other teachers, other professors on campus, and incorporated in my practice.
So I'm curious, because you mentioned going and observing all of these professors, is there one educational strategy or tactic that you saw that you were like, oh my gosh, wow, that kind of like blew your mind? That you've implemented that you're like, this is like my favorite thing that I've implemented?
Being human, like just being a human in the classroom. I think a lot of the problem in academia is there's this sort of like power imbalance, and I think when that happens, people aren't at their ripest learning state, and I think just being human and showing them that you're human develops a relationship with them that helps them listen to you better and the lessons stick better. So.
Do you feel like there's overlap between photography and your work as a mentor and teacher?
Yes,
skills.
absolutely, yeah. As a photographer, I am looking at anything, right, and trying to find every angle, every possible angle that tells your story, your sad story, your happy story. So as a photographer, that perspective taking is just in me, and I think that makes me a very receptive mentor.
Absolutely. So your work often captures those everyday moments like you just talked about. What do you feel like how do you really capture an authentic moment? How do you see a moment and then know how to capture it or capture it?
You feel it. You feel it. You don't really see it. You have to sit back. You have to really watch nuance in behavior, nuance in gesture, just even like body language, paying attention to energy, having that sort of selective vision.
And you've described photography as paying attention to small wonders. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you?
I remember when I first broke out my camera, when I wanted to be, I could just sit in the grass and look at the ant and look at the blade of grass and look at the little weed. And I remember I was walking my children to the bus stop one morning, and it was fall, and dew had landed on a spider web. And we were walking past it, and it was like diamonds. And I remember I stopped my daughter, she's 18 now, but she was 4 at the time, and I was taking pictures. The light was cutting it right, and I was just having a moment. She was sitting there, and I was getting it just perfect. And all of a sudden she went, boop, and it just went, boo, and disappeared. But it was that just getting lost in that moment was one of those small wonders that I think really just kind of helped me like be present and be grounded in life.
And your photography career, as we've mentioned, did not follow a straight line. You didn't go straight from undergrad studying photography to being a photographer. And something that I felt very encouraging when I first met you and we had talked is about like career path. Can you speak a little bit to not having a straight career path and how that can be a good thing and how maybe you can free up some students who might feel a lot of pressure with that decision right now?
So many students right now have such a fixed version of what a career looks like and what they think a job looks like. And what I tell them is you can have whatever job you want to create, especially in this world. Like things are changing, things are turning upside down. And in 3 years, this world's going to be unrecognizable. So just being able to follow your intuition, follow your passion, follow your connection. In doing so, it always felt a little haphazard, computer science, American studies, photography, what? But now that I'm finally 50, I turned 50 this year, all those pieces are starting to kind of like line up in a way that starts to make sense. But it has been an incredible journey. You were talking, you had a guest on that talked about burnout. There's no burnout when you're reinventing yourself every 10, 12 years. And maybe that's the way that I kind of deal with burnout. I just reinvent myself.
Hey, and I was say I definitely am one of those people as someone who, like I said, I have my hands in like so many different majors and minors, and can I get a certificate? So it is kind of fun. I've talked to my friends before because I take a pretty heavy course load, and a lot of times we're like, how do you not get burnt out? And almost every other semester I switch to a different like major heavy site. So I'll do like an education heavy major and then a journalism heavy major, and then maybe I got my certificate in service learning for one semester. So I was like, so I get to switch around, and even within college, which is just 4 years, that's really helped me kind of fight that burnout. So I think that's really good advice.
It is, and I think like when you have those intersections, it gives you a perspective. Like if you're journalism, right, you have a way different perspective than your fellow journalism because you're doing education as well, right? So that opens up a lot of opportunities. It's allowed me to pivot a lot easier because I already have a foot kind of in different doors, so yeah.
So we've talked a lot about your eye as a photographer and noticing those small moments, those authentic moments. Is there one habit or maybe just a small step that people could take to start, having that photographer's view of the world?
Just paying attention, just sitting and watching the light, chasing the light. Light shapes everything. Photography is light, so really understanding that. I had another thought, but I don't remember what it is right now.
Okay. Is there a photograph that you would like to take one day? Is there like a either place or person or thing that you're like, I want to get that photograph?
No, but I want one of my photographs in Allen Fieldhouse. One of my photographs is almost in every single building, but there's not one in Allen Fieldhouse, so I want a photo. Yes.
What's your favorite part about being a part of the KU community?
Oh, the people. It's just incredible people, a great community. It's like an amazing campus. I'm inspired every day. The only thing that I think I don't like is the parking.
That is the thing that gets all of us, unfortunately. And is there any piece of advice, if you could give to students or a general audience, that you would just like to share?
That's a good question. Yeah. I don't know. I have lots of them, and they're all flooding my mind right now. I think it's just like, don't sit back and think that life is taken care of, that you can really get in the driver's seat and make your own make your own reality, make your own job, make your own doors that you can open. I think that would be it.
And one thing I also like to do on the podcast is to really humanize people who work in these, research jobs, or maybe that people look up to, like, oh, maybe I would love to be a KU photographer one day. And so one thing that I've started to ask is, what question do you have? Is there a question that's still kind of, you did a lot of different things, you did a lot of different jobs. Is there anything that you're still really curious about or want to know more about or are excited to learn?
Yes. I'd love to learn physics. I'd love to be a theoretical physicist, I think, but I have no background in it whatsoever. But anytime I read anything, I like if I were to completely reinvent myself, maybe.
What is it about physics?
The unknown.
Yeah.
The wide unknown. And I think that's why with the educational psychology, I've leaned into the neuroscience side and the AI side. And I love these spaces of unknown. The brain is just a organ inside our head, and we know so little about it, and the universe is the same way.
Speaking of AI, what are your thoughts as a photographer with AI images, all of that? Do you have an opinion or a thought?
With photography, no. Other than what it's coming up with now, I don't like. No, but I did do a paper in one of my classes really trying to understand how AI might impact documentary photography. And I walked away realizing that is a job that is going to be solely human for quite some time, because AI is not going to be able to understand nuances and I said paying attention to gesture and the little things, and I think only humans are going to be able to do that for quite some time. So I think that side of it is AI proof.
Do you have anything on the education side? Because I'm in the education world, and I know it's a huge debate. Use it, not use it, how to use it, ethical use, students using it. Do you have a stance on it from the educational side?
Oh yeah, I'm taking 2 AI classes this semester. I took one in 2024. I'm a very big user of AI in the educational spaces. I use it for writing. I use it for research. I think it's really, really powerful. When I first started, the first class I took, I was like, oh yeah, I've got a computer science background. This is my thing. And then I quickly realized that AI was moving so fast that you'd go to sleep and it would be a completely different day. And so I walked away from that class. I was like, I'm too old for this. I want to stick on something that's not moving so fast. And so I was using AI, but I wasn't going to be an AI researcher. But I'm taking 2 classes this semester, and I'm realizing now more and more AI is going to radically change our world, and we need people who know things, who can put guardrails and who have ethics. And I'm one of those people. So I've re-engaged with the AI world, and I am a big user, but I do think that there's a lot of guardrails and a lot of conversations need to be had. One of the things I've noticed is right now people are working in silos, so I think there needs to be this sort of collective coming together so that we can figure out what we're going to do with this.
Absolutely. And finally, is there anything else that we should know about Meg? Anything that you would like to share?
My wormhole story.
Let's hear it.
So in the fall of 2016, we were covering the Physics and Engineering Club, PESO, Physics and Engineering Student Organization, and they had a musical test the coil they brought up on campus, and the first time I saw them was actually right out here, and I was like, oh, and so you know what a Tesla coil is?
Yes.
Yes. A musical Tesla coil does the Tesla to music. So they play music and then the tentacles would dance. And so they did it out here, and it was underneath the tree, and I was trying to take it, and it was daylight, and as you can imagine, trying to shoot electricity flying through, it wasn't good. But it was a really cool opportunity. So we reached out and asked them if they would meet with us at nighttime. And so we met with them on November 8th, 2016 over at West Campus, and they set up a big, elaborate Well, it wasn't it is elaborate. But there's a Faraday cage, and they had students, and there were like 5 or 6 of us that came in, and they were doing their little demo, and I was taking pictures, and at some point the physics and engineering student president came over. He's like, "Do you guys want to go in the Faraday cage?" And we're like, "Yeah, I want to go in the Faraday cage." So I think I was the last person to go. So the videographer went, another videographer went. And then I went in. And so a Faraday cage is about the size of a phone booth. And it's this metal cage. And I went in with my camera and my tripod. And I had a trigger flash on the students that were 100 feet away. And so I'm in there, and it's this tiny little space. So I have a remote control for my camera, and I have a remote control for my flash. And I get like 3 minutes in the Faraday cage. And it starts going, and you have electricity. And it's just like really just incredibly intense. And then nothing was working right. Like it wasn't firing, the shutter wasn't going, and it was just this weird moment. And I was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "What if I went in a wormhole?" Like, and I eventually came out, and I was talking to the president of the Physics and Engineering Club, and I was like, "Yeah, nothing was working." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Oh, I had the remote control." And he's like, "Duh." And I'm like, oh. Duh. He's like, "You're in a Faraday cage. All the remote triggers don't work in a Faraday cage because a Faraday cage protects you from, like, it has physics things that I don't know about." And that's why my camera wasn't working. So November 8th, 2016 was also election night 2016. And prior in the day, I was so certain that Hillary Clinton was going to win. I bet one of my coworkers 5-1 that Hillary was going to win Kansas. That's how certain I was that Hillary was going to win. So we finish up this Faraday cage experiment, and I get in my car and I look at my phone, and it's very clear that Donald Trump was winning. And I was like, "What do you? No." And I turned on the radio, and NPR very clearly Donald Trump had won. And I was like, I went in a wormhole. I went in a wormhole. And it kind of sat with me, and then things just started to happen. I ended up developing breast cancer that year. Some stuff went on with my son. There were like some natural disasters that were like starting to hit. And I was like, maybe I went in a wormhole. Like this is really interesting. And you mentioned that I'm a mentor. One of the very first students that I mentored, his name was Alex Kong. He was here the first year I was here, and we had met up for coffee. And I was telling him this story, right? And he's brilliant, and he's making eye contact. And I fished him, and he's like, "You have to go back." And I was like, I have to go back. I do have to go back. And so it became this sort of running joke, right? And so I told my coworker, like, "We need to go back." "Ha, Meg, haha." And then like the world just continued to like just kind of unwind. And it got to be 2019, and I was like slowly like talking my boss into like, "Let's go back." And so during Hawk Week, I beelined it straight over the physics and engineering table, and the poor guy behind the counter was not who we had met with 2 years. And I unloaded this story on him, and I was like, "Can we go back?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yes." And then COVID happened. And so we never got to go back. And it's just been this running joke that's been going all along. But with the way that things are going, I really think I want to just go back and see what. I want to make this video where I go around campus. I want to meet with philosophers and physicists and English majors and interview them about this possibility and what it would mean. One of my coworkers who was on my team doesn't want to go back because he met his wife in this time, and he's worried that if he goes back, he won't meet her. So that's why I would bring in the philosopher. So that's the one story that I want to tell everyone that I don't get to tell everyone.
That is a super cool story, and it's crazy to me that I haven't heard this story yet. I haven't heard as many times that we've talked, so I'm glad that we were able to.
And it's fun because like half the time I don't know if I'm serious or joking. Like, and people are looking at me like they don't know if I'm serious or joking, and I still to this day don't know if I'm serious or joking.
And I think that's the beauty of the story,
right?
I think any good story has a little bit of a question of, oh well, what if?
Yeah, what if?
What if or what if not?
Right.
I love that. Well, Meg, thank you so much
Certainly.
for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and your perspective, not only on photography, but life and mentorship and wormholes and all sorts of fun stuff, right? And I think you just really remind us that important things are happening every day and that it's important to notice them.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of the lesson that we can all learn from photographers. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Crimson Chat. Join us next time for another conversation with scholars, artists, leaders shaping the University of Kansas. We will see you then.